Hello, this is Michael Boone and this is my Pecha assignment. The most common thing I get asked about my training from the Marine Corps is actually not of the actual training itself, but what McMaps is, mainly because I say that and no one knows what it is. So I wanted to make my video on a brief explanation of what it is, and just how it is used in the Marine Corps. Like in most martial arts, McMap comes with a belt structure, starting with tan, gray, and then green, and once you get to green belt you can get a tan tab, which means you can teach any other belt lower than yours, and once you get to black belt you can get a red tab, which means that you can teach any black belts on how to be an instructor. Like most military combat arts, the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, or MCMAP, is a very hybrid martial arts system, which means it uses multiple martial arts of several different disciplines. And I'm going to give a brief explanation of those disciplines because several people don't even know what some of them are. First up is Aikido. It's a Japanese martial arts developed by Morihei Ueshiba. I most likely pronounced that wrong. It has various styles, but its core elements is mainly that it's meant to subdue opponents in more passive ways as to not harm them. Next up is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's Brazilian, obviously, and it's a hybrid martial arts of several different people. It's mainly strong use of ground grappling, and it believes that you can take down any opponent regardless of whether you're smaller or weaker than your opponent, as long as you can get them to the ground. Boxing was originally created back in ancient Greece, but got strongly popular in Great Britain. It's very popular and you really need no explanation of how it works. You just throw fists until the allotted time that you went to have the match is done, and a winner is generally declared. Most of our fighting stance is actually based off of boxing stance. Eskrima is a Filipino martial arts with several developers. It has a strong focus on armed combat, mainly with sticks, knives, and bladed weapons. A lot of our military police use this every day actually because of the baton training that they need to use for their day-to-day basis. Hapkido is a Korean martial arts made by Choi Yong-sul. It's a very well-rounded martial arts that implements throws, manipulations, armed combat, and joint manipulations as well. We generally use pretty much all of those in MCMAPs all the time, and it's very, very effective in many ways. Judo is a Japanese martial arts made by Jigoro Kano. Judo is very similar to Hapkido, with the only difference being that it has a higher derived version of it that your body weight doesn't really matter. You can take down an opponent regardless of their size difference to you. Jiu-Jitsu is a Japanese martial arts with many developers. Like Judo, it's very similar, except with one major difference. The difference being that Jiu-Jitsu is a little bit more scrappy. You're willing to gouge out your opponent's eyes or even bite them to try to get them to inflict pain. Ishin Ryu Karate is a Japanese martial arts made by Tatsuo Shimabuku. Like most karate, it has a high emphasis on body conditioning to receive blows and still go through your combat. Ishin Ryu Karate is actually also special because it's a wholehearted karate that implies a lot of different types of karate. Kickboxing is a martial arts made by several different people and has many different countries of origins throughout time. It mainly uses kicks and punching, and although it is mainly used for self-defense, it can be very effective in an offensive manner too. Like boxing, we actually use this style of stance for our fighting style. Krav Maga was made in Saudi Arabia by Emi Lichtenfeld. It, like MCMAPs, is a military hybrid martial arts with strong emphasis on real-world engagement as well as multi-opponent engagement. It's very effective and is today considered the most powerful martial arts in the world. Kung Fu is a Chinese martial arts also made by several different people. It uses weapons for self-defense and has a lot of emphasis on animal mimicry. And although we don't generally use a lot of that animal mimicry in our combat, we still generally use most of the forms and techniques that Kung Fu uses. Muay Thai is a martial arts from Thailand, with several different developers. It's known as the art of the 8 limbs for its strong emphasis on knee and elbow strikes. We generally use this a lot actually to take down our opponents very, very quickly and rapidly in whatever position we may be. Savate is a French martial arts made by Michael Cassot. It is very similar to kickboxing. As a matter of fact, it's known as French kickboxing. Savate is also very, very similar to kickboxing, with only one difference. Most of the kicking is actually a straightforward kick. You generally don't use your shins or your knees to land the kick. Sambo is a Russian martial arts made by Viktor Spiridonov and Vasily Ochebkov. A form of self-defense with no weapons needed, it's highly strong on grappling techniques and taking down your opponent with no need for any weapons of any kind to do it. Sayak Kali is a Filipino martial arts made by Chris Sayak. It has a high emphasis on bladed combat, especially with knives, both armed and disarming techniques. We generally use this a lot for our K-bar techniques, as well as some of our bayonet techniques when attached to the assault rifle that we use. Taekwondo is a Korean martial arts made by several people. It's a mix of several other different types of martial arts and has a strong emphasis on kicks, hence its nickname, the Feet of Death. We generally use this a lot actually in attempts to cripple their legs so they can't move or break their arms simply by kicking them. And finally, wrestling. It has several countries of origins and it's been developed by several different people as well. It has strong emphasis on grappling, throws, and takedowns, as well as joint locks and clinch fighting, which is pretty much just extremely close quarters fighting, so your opponent has no range of motion whatsoever to actually get an attack off.